because just like always, we have a lot on our plates for the session today. Probably my preferred session of the fourth we have. So we want to give you a lot of concepts, examples. Let's see. Let's see if my computer will cooperate. I will close the Slack. Good. Are you seeing the screen? Is okay? Yes?
Yes.
Let's go then. Behavioral design, module number 3. We already passed the half of the course. We have this session and then next week. I will not repeat everything, just that thing. Try to close all the other windows. Try to help your brain to stay focused on what will be the session today. And I'm receiving, again, Carol, that you know already from the last session. Today's Carol. I think next week, Tim will be back with us. So, but you know already the 3 of us, so no surprises. What do we have on the agenda for this session today, for this module? We want to start talking about habits, understanding how habits are formed, how we have this habit loop, existing and influencing our behaviors. Then we'll go into nudging. So what is nudging? We'll give you like examples. We have a framework for you to design nudges. And then we'll apply habits and nudging together into an activity for you to practice. In the last part of the session, we'll talk about peak moments. We have also a framework for that. When you work in design, you are designing experiences. It's very nice to understand the peak moment logic and then try to use it also in the way you influence people. Before anything, let's go for a check-in. So the check-in is about habits. So I will give a definition. A habit is a regular behavioral action that it's performed automatically. So based on that, what is one small and maybe slightly silly habit you have that you'd love to redesign or upgrade? So you can open your mic or you can share in the chat what is more convenient for you. So one small habit you would like to redesign.
Well, I can start.
Sorry.
So I just, well, I recently had to start wearing glasses, and I have a really bad habit of touching them when I take them on and off, because I only need to use them in front of a screen or if I read a book. And that is, I had no idea they could become so messy so incredibly fast. But I feel a little bit stupid because, it shouldn't be so complicated wearing glasses, but it is. And who would have known? I need better glass habits.
Yeah, good. But, like it's decades also of a behavior where you don't have them on your face. So it's, your brain is not used to have this like a kind of a barrier. Yeah, right. Great. Thank you, Therese. Pernilla, you had started to talk to.
I just drink. Do you have lid connected to the? Is that all over the world or is it only in Sweden?
Just Europe. Just in Europe.
Yeah, just Europe. It's horrible because when you drink, you see it gets stuck in your mouth. And if you want to take it off, it's really, really hard. So I understand, but it's totally crap. And if you use it like this, you have to put that and then it flips you back. No, I hate it. Don't like it. Just
I would tell you, now I'm drinking with this kind of things. And, also with the, how it's called?
Yeah, straw.
That's helping me drinking more. So, but I understand the thing with the cap. It's really annoying. Carol was saying in the chat, checking my phone when I wake up. Denisa is the same. Yeah, this is typically something we do. Daphne said morning before work routines, maybe. Then we have keep snacking when working from home. out of boredom. Yeah. Or bike parking in front of the house, such a hassle every time we need to use one. Walking through the candy aisle in the supermarket, not because I need something, just to check if there is something on sale. Just to make a little check, yeah? Simone, open every incoming message and answer it immediately. Yeah. We live in this, yeah, it's the new era, right?
I can
Completely.
just say one. It's hard for me to not want to have a cup of coffee after dinner.
hmm
And it just feels like the right thing to do for me. I don't know, I got in that habit. And it definitely, though I say it doesn't, affects me affects me at night.
hmm
So that would be one thing. And I've started to move to decaf, so I'm working on that.
Good. Hanepo doing way too many reality checks with AI during the day on many two things. Yeah, this is also.
I hate the notification red dots with the number on any Apple device. So I basically read everything and then I forget about what I've read. Even if sometimes it's important, I don't know how those people with 15,000 or stuff like this number in the email app live. But I also don't like what I do, so I don't know what to do actually.
Thanks, Marco, for sharing. Lilia said, making my partner put dirty dishes in the dishwasher and not in the sink. Yes, I understand. That's a challenge. Good. Thank you guys for sharing. I leave you with Carol. She will start with the habit loops part, and then I will be back for the nudges.
Okay, let's start.
Will I put you co-host? Yes.
Yep. Can you see? Yes.
Yep.
Okay. So today we have a lot of content, but as Sabrina said, we'll start with habit loops. So we are talking about behavior change for the past two sessions, and we know changing behavior, it's hard. And especially when the behavior has already turned into a habit. So changing this behavior is hard to start, but it's even harder to sustain. And you can imagine, like, sometimes you decide you're going to change something, I don't know, quit smoking. Let's take a radical one. It's easier to begin, but the hardest part is to sustain, because breaking habits, it's not so simple. But we have frameworks to understand what's behind it. We have many different frameworks for habits, for habit formation and habits change. We are bringing here probably one of the most famous ones by BJ Fogg. He's one of the main authors on habits, and he has this bestseller, Tiny Habits. So he believes that you should start small. His framework is called BMAT. So behavior equals to motivation, ability, and trigger. Motivation meaning emotions. So some sensation, pleasure or pain, some anticipation of any emotion, for example, hope or fear. It could be negative or positive depending on the context. And motivation has also to do with belonging. So we have talked about this last week. So people that you care about, that are in your network, so you want to be accepted, or you don't want to be rejected. So belonging is a good predictor of behavior. Also, ability to perform the intended behavior is a very important piece here, and that's why he talks so much about easiness, and we'll see this in a bit. But ability could mean time, money, physical effort, brain cycles, social deviances, routines. So ability is not just physical ability, it is also, but ability in a broader spectrum, as we will see. And then the trigger is what sparks to start the given behavior or the intended behavior. This should perform as a facilitator or signal to start. And the BMAT, the best place, the best triggers will succeed in this intersection of easiness, which is ability, and motivation. So high motivation and great ability is this area where triggers succeed the most. And this line here is the activation threshold, because if it's too hard, the triggers might be perceived as annoying or distracting. And if you don't have motivation, sorry, the opposite. So the lack of ability, it makes you frustrated because you cannot do it, you cannot perform it. And if you don't have motivation, you just see that as something annoying or distracting. For example, a patient got the same advice: walk 30 minutes every day. Patient B had a high motivation, but he works 12 hours, he lives in an unsafe neighborhood, has chronic knee pain. Although the motivation is hard, the ability is high, the ability is very hard for him to perform. And ability here meaning physical ability, time ability because of working hours, and even safeness. And the patient A, maybe he's not so motivated, but it's so easy because he has a park nearby, he has time, and he likes walking. So it has to be a combination when we want to change a given habit. And that's what Fogg says. Don't focus your motivation on doing behavior X. Instead, focus on making behavior X easier to do. And when we are designing for habit change, we should focus on make this so easy to do that the trigger gets stronger. And even though there are many different frameworks for habit change, we can see the three-step loop that's behind all of this. So there is always a trigger. That's the signal that sparks. That's the reminder that puts us into the routine. There is the routine, which is the behavior itself, the habit itself, and it could be good or bad. And one important thing is it's important to have a reward. So it's a positive feedback when we close the loop. This is from Charles Duhigg. He has written probably the most famous book on habits. It's The Power of Habit. And he says that habits are powerful but delicate. And sometimes we are not conscious of them. They emerge outside of our awareness, and they can or cannot be deliberately designed. And most of the times they occur without our permission. That's our system 2 working here. And they can be reshaped if we tweak their components. So that's why it's important to understand the components behind it. And sometimes you change one of them and the rest just goes along in the loop. But they shape our lives far, far more than we realize. Like most of the time we are just performing habits. When we drive, we are not conscious, we're just driving. It is automatic, and the way we drive also. And they are so strong that our brains, it's like cling to it. And it's like shut down everything else. So we perform a given activity, that is the behavior. We have pleasure, we repeat that activity. That's how the habit starts. And the pleasure here is the problem. So that become an addiction because that's dopamine, serotonin, or whatever hormone is involved in that pleasure. And what's interesting is that habits and addictions, they are created in the same part of our brains. But the addiction is actually a habit that causes us problems. But the mechanism is the same. And we transform this into a routine because we want to save energy. We already also talked about that. Like, we create shortcuts because our brain wants to save energy. We didn't have so many food available in the past, so that's how our brain works. Biases, heuristics, and habits, they are all mechanisms to save energy by the brain, which is the organ that spends most energy in the body. So that's easier to perform a habit than every time having to decide, am I doing this or not? And when there's pleasure involved, that becomes much stronger. There's another author on habits that is James Clear, and he has also talked about tiny changes as J.B. Fogg. The book is Atomic Habits, and he says that habits are a dopamine-driven feedback loop. So here's the reward. But dopamine isn't just a reward hormone, and that's the interesting part. It's an anticipation hormone. So actually, you get the reward before you even perform the habit itself, the behavior itself. It's like gambling addicts. When doctors and researchers have MRIs in their brains, they can see that the dopamine spike is not after the win the game, but moments before. So the reward is the anticipation of this reward, not just the fulfillment of it, is that gets us into action. But when we find ways, when we are designing for behavior change, to give a space, to close this gap in the intention action loop, like there is a small gap between the intention and the action people perform. We need to give this space for some thinking, for some deliberation. So maybe we can break this automatic response. And we have this 4-step pattern that is the backbone of all habits. It's like the habit loop, but here broken in a more linear way. So with this is we do these steps in the same order every time. We have a cue, which is the same as a trigger. We have the craving, that is this anticipation of the reward. Then our body responds, which is the behavior itself, and then we get the reward. So the trigger, the cue, it could be any information that predicts we will get a reward. But this is created in our brains in different ways. Like, everything can be a cue, and it depends a lot on the context. For example, smoking. A coffee could be a trigger, because for someone, drinking coffee and having a cigarette after it is the habit the person created. So she connected coffee to cigarette, and then this is the cue. But for someone else, could be something completely different, like seeing someone else smoke outside. I don't know. But here, when we bring this to marketing, for example, we see that we are always looking for cues, because we are always trying to find rewards. And we already know that rewards, they are located with some cues. Like Marco mentioned, the red number on iPhone apps. Like, for some people, that's dopamine. So we see that you already feel that sense of reward, and you just keep on that habit loop of opening this. And sometimes the reward doesn't happen. Like, you open that, it's nothing. For example, you open is your phone company with a random message, but you keep doing that because you are anticipation a reward that might never happen. And then companies use that. For example, this geolocation advertising by Starbucks, that when people pass by a store, they send you this trigger. Like, you're near our Starbucks, we have a discount for you on your favorite drink. So this is already a trigger and really much connected to the reward that we already know the person's likes, which is the vanilla latte. And then this is really much connected and is stronger, and we will see this in a framework Sabrina will present later, but triggers, they are much stronger when they are correlated to our location, to a given time, so it has to be timely. For example, sending in lunchtime a discount for food. We already know that at that time the person is already hungry, so time makes triggers stronger. Emotional state, and this can be tricky, but yes, of course, we know that when people are fragile, they might be more willing to do something. Also, other people. So if we have important people around, or if we are alone or not. So all of this makes triggers stronger, and we'll talk about this more. The craving is the motivation. So again, different frameworks have different names for things, but as you can see, it's the same. Cue, trigger, never mind. Then craving could be desire, motivation. So we have no reason to act if we don't have the motivation. So what we want is not the habit itself, but the change of state that it provides. So we want the reward, we don't want the habit. That's the thing about gambling. Like, we want that dopamine spike from the anticipation. It's not just about the game. Then the response is the behavior. So is the habit, the action. And it could take the form of a thought. It could be even a thought or an action. So sometimes we have mind habits. So this sometimes it's not just an actionable behavior, but it could be a thought. And the response, this depends on how motivated we are to perform such thing, and the friction that is associated with this behavior. So before, I said that BJ Fogg says that easiness is important. And here friction has to do with that, because sometimes we want to make it less easy. We want to make it less easy for someone to perform a habit. That's interesting, because it could be both ways. If we want to stop a given behavior, we could add friction. And then the reward is the ultimate goal, of course. And we seek this because they serve us two purposes. They satisfy our desires, and they teach us what actions to remember in the future. You probably saw already, like, dogs being trained. You want to teach them a given behavior, you give them a reward. So in their brains, they already know, like, okay, if I perform this, I will get this reward. So it's important that our brain create these shortcuts, again, to save energy, but also to know what's good and what's bad for us. Of course, that's not what happens sometimes. Sometimes we're performing bad habits, but in the way our brain is wired, it is important for us to learn what outcomes are good. Like, if I feel pain when I do something, I might not do this again. So this is teaching me what actions I don't want to do again. But if I feel pleasure, okay, that's a cue to perform it, to keep doing this, and don't thinking again when I have to do this. I just do it because it works. Of course, we could say that pain sometimes leads to pleasure, and that's another story. I'm oversimplifying here, but it's a way to teach us in a very simple way what's good and what's bad for us. So how to create a good habit, but it could be the other way. It could be a bad habit, okay? And it's different. But when you want to make a cue, a trigger, you have to make it obvious. So for example, leave your workout clothes next to your bed. It's so easy. You just wake up, instead of putting another clothes, put that clothes on. You are already one step ahead. You already have your feet out of the house. The craving has to be attractive, the motivation. So here again about running. A lot of people does that, like buy new clothes, buy a smartwatch. Give yourself some motivation before you even start. Like you want to use that. It's something from outside that brings this attractiveness. Then the response has to be easy. And here's the thing about easy or not easy or friction. But in this case, it's a good habit. So set small goals to start, like very, very, very small, because it has to be easy. So you don't need to tell yourself, I have to run 5K. You can just run 100 miles and give yourself the reward. So you could even use different rewards. People that run says that endorphins, they are already a good reward. But you could also use other kinds of rewards. Like every time I run, I will give myself, I don't know, a Starbucks coffee. And then you associate, you give yourself like your own reward, and you associate running with that reward. The habit is created by that. Like you always associate the trigger with the reward. But also, how can you break a bad habit? So you can see that it's the opposite. So the cue, you have to turn it invisible. Don't buy cigarettes, for example. It will be a little bit harder for you to perform the habit because you don't have it and you don't see it. So hide it, take it out from home, like and it could be something else, like whatever is the trigger for smoking, you have to turn it invisible. The craving, which is the motivation, you have to turn cigarettes into something not attractive. So add reminders of how this is not a real relief. This is just an escape. Because for people that smoke so much, sometimes the habit is just not so much correlated to the reward anymore. It's like just the habit itself that's happening there. And do you actually enjoy it, or you are just performing this? Then the response has to be harder. So for example, after a meal, so if your habit was to finish the meal and get the cigarette, take something else, do a cup of tea, and like use that as your escape from that moment. So the tea will be more at reach than the cigarette, and then you use that as your escape or whatever is behind the habit. That's important to understand. What's the motivation? What's the craving about? Is this about passing time? Is this about relaxing? So you have to turn into that motivation. You have to use something to replace that motivation. And then the reward has to be something, you should turn this into something that's not satisfactory. And then you can set goals, and then you give yourself, like I said before, small gifts when you reach these goals. So over time, you make the reward of not performing the habit better than when performing. And the James Clear from Atomic Habits, he says there is a 2-minute rule for starting or stopping a new behavior. So any new habit should start with just 2 minutes of action. The goal is to make the habit so small that it's almost impossible to avoid. But once you've started, the momentum carries you forward. So it's like people say, like, read just 5 minutes a day a book. But then when you see, you read more pages than you first thought. So he's saying that 2 minutes is enough to create this loop and this momentum. So, for example, for creating a habit of productivity, you sit down and open your laptop for work. So, or opening the laptop is a trigger. You have a desire to be more productive or have more progress. So your response is just commit to doing any task for 2 minutes. Never mind if it's reading a book, starting an email. And the reward is that you feel accomplished, that you did something. And even if you stop after 2 minutes, you already like started this process of having a good emotion associated with that small change. And that's also what BJ Fox says about micro habits. So the essence of these micro habits is you adopt the behavior you want, you shrink it down, find how it fits naturally into your life, don't force it, and nurture it so it can grow. If you want to create long-term habits, it's better to start small. That's one thing he always says. And we can also use nudges, and then Sabrina will take it from here, to use nudges as triggers, and that's really a really interesting approach from design.
Thank you, Carol. It's interesting because like Christopher was commenting in the chat, it's a thing of tribes. You will see that all the things we are talking about in the different sessions, they are connecting with each other. It's not just habits like kind of isolated. You can connect it with the different frameworks. We'll connect it with nudges now. It's really like, kind of building your toolbox with a lot of things, but you will see that a lot are connecting, definitely, depending on the situation, on the context, on the behavior that you want to change. Could be yours, could be of somebody else. Okay, so nudging. I will start with the picture, and then, sorry for the ladies here, I will ask the men. So Daniel is just, taking the head like, why? She's talking to me. Men, I would like you to have the ladies here in the room to say like, what is this picture about? What is that stuff?
That's the target.
That's the target. Have you seen this already in real life?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, where?
In how do you call them? Like
Urinal.
standing urinal, exactly.
Yeah, but in restaurants, bars, airports.
Yeah, offices, I
Yeah.
think. I always
Yeah.
think that if you target it, that should turn another color. They should use something that works with worm, because if it stays black, then it's also a bit boring. I mean, I
Something
actually thought,
interactive. Something
yeah, I mean,
interactive.
I actually thought that it worked that way in the beginning, and I was like, this is weird.
Disappointed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's one of the very first nudges that started like, 2 decades ago. It was a guy that was having a bar, and he was like observing that the cost of cleaning were much higher on the men's side than on the woman's side. So he started to think like, what could I do to change this? And then he had the idea because, okay, we have to try to, fit on the right place. And men in bars, when they are drinking a lot, they are not so good for that. So he had this idea, to paint this little thing to just see if it was having any difference. And indeed, it made a lot of difference because like guys were just trying to aim at the target, and it was like reducing the spit, and then it was reducing the cost of cleaning. It started in a bar, but then it was really made in a lot of restaurants, airports, and a lot of public places. So this is kind of introduction of the topic of nudges. And when I presented that slide in one of the past cohorts, there is a participant, a student who was from India. And she said, oh, in my country, We put tiles of gods in the streets where we know in specific places of streets, people are urinating, like men are urinating on the walls. We put tiles of gods. And this is an amazing solution. So that's a declination, another option of how do you avoid people urinating on the place you don't want to. This comes to the choice architecture. I mean, I don't know if you've seen this picture already. It's very famous of people working in design that you can, sometimes design something very beautiful, very perfect, but at the end, the user makes what he wants, right? So if he doesn't want to walk over there and he wants to cross, yeah, he will do it. So we can try to design choices, but we cannot force the human being to go in a certain way. And that's exactly the definition of what is a nudge, okay? So the nudge is a positive reinforcement or indirect suggestions as ways to influence the behavior and decision-making of group and individuals. But you don't force someone into a specific path. You try to reinforce perhaps one option more than another, but the human being will remain with his own decision-making, okay, with his own kind of authority to decide, agency to decide. Okay, so that's the definition of a nudge. And nudge is all started mainly in the UK when it was the first government that decided to create a team dedicated to behavioral design. And they started to work on, how they can influence, I don't know, payments of taxes or saving money for when you will retire. They worked more on this huge scale of a country. And then afterwards, it has been declined more into business and corporations, but it started initially in the government of UK. So we have a framework we want to bring you to help design nudges. It's called EAST, and each letter is for something. Like the E is for easy, then attractive, social, and timely. Okay? And I will go one by one, giving you some examples. Oh, I'm just thinking now, I have to stop sharing because I have some video and I want to share the video with you, but without the sound, it's not so funny. So let me put the share sound again, and then we go. So the EAST is 4 pillars of designing nudges. Not all of them apply all the time, okay? You have to choose one of the other. So the first one, the E is for easy. So how can you make it easy for people? How can you harness the power of defaults? Like when something is predefined, people have the tendency to leave it like it is. We'll give you the example of organ donation. There are some countries where if you want to be a donator of organ, you have to fill a form and say, yes, I want to donate my organs. Is something happening? But the point is that, dying is not the loveliest topic to think about, right? So people, they are lazy to fill a form and they don't want to think about their own death. Other countries, they have changed to set it as a default. So they said, okay, by definition, by default, all the citizens will donate their organs. And if you don't agree, you have to fill a form. So they just make it easy. You don't have to do anything. And it's very interesting because people where you have to fill a form to donate, they have more or less a 15% of donations on the whole population. The countries who set it by default, it's 85%. 85%. And they are saving hundreds and thousands of lives every year thanks to that. Okay? So they're not forcing people to donate. You can fill a form if you don't want to. That's fine. But the default is set to really make it easy for the wished behavior. Okay? I will make you hear a little video, which is another example of the easy stuff. Okay, so you see, they have not changed so much on the setup of the environment. They have cut the apples in tinier pieces because then, when you see a whole apple, you say, oh, okay, perhaps I will not eat everything. And then I will have the thing in my hand. And then, it's not so practical. And this is not, really motivating me. But it's in tiny pieces. Okay, even if I take a piece of cake, I can also take 2 or 3 pieces of apple. So it's another example of how when you turn it easy, you are helping people to change their behaviors. Second letter of the EAST framework is A for attractive. Okay? So you attract attention, you make some rewards, it's funny, it's playful. Yeah. So you see here for the recycling, people are just like throwing their stuff. There are a lot of examples also with stairs. How do you engage people to take stairs? Like, okay, you say which calories are you burning? Or like just here showing that you are doing sport instead of taking the escalators. Okay, this is an example of how you turn it non-attractive. Okay, so you want people to use less plastic bags, you turn it less attractive. It's not so nice. Okay, so again, you can influence into like having a behavior or avoiding a behavior. The third letter is S for social. And this is exactly what we are talking about now. We are always influenced about the behavior of other people. So here on the website, this now, or like 25 others people are looking to these dates in this city. Or here, people with notification turned on report losing 64% more weight. So, it is like pushing you to activate the notification of the app because they show you that it's efficient for other people. Same thing for towels in the hotels. When you reuse your towels, when you say, oh, you will help the planet, it does not have so much of an effect. But if you say, oh, 75% of people who stayed at this hotel reuse their towels, then yes, you see a result. Okay? Here, another example of the show of Coldplay in 2023. You remember they had, everybody have seen these pictures of like they have the wristbands, with the light, and then everybody was making the moves during the show. But they wanted to recycle these wristbands. They wanted to reuse them. So they were showing here like how the other countries or places had recycled, just to motivate the participants of the show to really like leave the wristband at the end of the show to be recycled. This is also about gamification. Gamification turns the thing, social, attractive. It's you have leaderboards. So you are kind of comparing yourself to others, makes it fun, makes it playful. So it's really reinforcing rewards and positive behavior. You can have goal setting, you can track your progress. So this is really something that is, based on these attractive and social elements of the EAST framework. And then the last one is the T for timely. Because when, you come at the right moment, people are more receptive. So I give you examples. Here, when you buy something on Amazon, only one left in stock. This is creating urgency in your brain, right? If you want to push people to use less paper, you can show them directly. When you show directly like this, each time you take a towel, you see, okay, this is impacting nature. So you are getting out of your system 1, of your automatic pilot, and this is activating your system 2, your deep thinking, your what are the consequences of my actions, of my immediate actions? Because if not, we are just like on the automatic pilot. The same with this notification. Now there are companies, as Carol was saying, identifying where you are. And if you are going nearby of a shop, they are sending you the notification at that time. This is the T of timely. Okay, so summarizing the EAST, easy, attractive, social, and timely. These are the 4 letters that can help you define or you are designing potential nudges. Good. Any question? Doubts? No? It's clear?
Actually,
So I want to...
Sorry,
Yes,
I do have a quick question.
Daniel, go.
I should have raised my hand.
Please.
It would be with the example of the organ donation. It would be really interesting to know if 100 people were questioned, just flat out, if they would want to donate their organs, what percentage of them would say yes or no? If it was closer to the 85% or closer to the 15%. I think that's where we get into the ethics of it all, I suppose, to some degree.
Exactly. Because also it's a question of how do you make it clear and transparent that this is existing, you know? So for example, I live in Ecuador, and in Ecuador, when you go in the administration to make your identity cards, they ask you the question at that moment. And as they know that everyone has to make the identity card because that's mandatory, right? They are asking you the question at that moment, which is, I think, a good compromise, because then the person's question is really like, do you want yes or no? And then the person is putting this into the system so that when they are printing your identity card, it's written on it. So if you have an accident, you know, they get your identity card and then they look at it and they can see directly if you want to donate or not. So I think it's a good compromise between not putting something as a default without the person being aware. And I think this is very ethical in terms of like how the government has decided to move forward with that. Kind of an example, right? But I discovered, you know, there are many things. I'm French, but I'm living in Latin America. And there are so many things that are amazing in Latin America that we could inspire ourselves in Europe or in North America. It's always very surprising. Also in banks, I mean, Carol is working in banks, so she knows much better than I, but like so many things that they are doing, and it's so much easier for the population than in France. I mean, it's frightening. You know, when I come back in France, I said, oh my God, oh my God. So let's go for an activity. The idea is that each group will get an habit, a real world habit, okay? And then you would have to map what is the habit loop, and you would have to think, how do you redesign this loop with, you know, the East framework, or perhaps some micro habits concept that Carol was explaining. So in the Miro, it will look like this. So each group will have one behavior. So here, for example, email reflex. The habit is checking email first thing in the morning. Oh, by the way, this was the habit of Carol. Checking email first thing in the morning, even before getting out of bed. Okay, so the group one will work on that. You will have 4 places to make the diagnosis now. What's the cue, what's the craving, what's the response, what's the reward. And then you have a second slide to ideate on potential interventions. Okay. I'm putting in the chat the link of the Miro for you to join. And I will create the groups now. I see Anne is taking care of the kid. So I will put her in a group where there are more people. So let's see. I think I will make just 3 groups. Yeah, I will make 3 groups of 4 people per group. Okay, so that you can divide yourself. So if you want to divide and say, okay, one person is thinking about the cue, the other one about the craving, you know, you can divide a little bit if you want to be more efficient, but you can also do all together. 15 minutes. I will open it now. You will discover in which group you are and therefore on which habit you will be working. Ready? Let's go. So I'm opening the rooms. Welcome back. So you saw that I've given more time. You saw it, that I was adding some minutes, and then so finally it has been 20, which I see good results. I mean, looking at your post-its and so on, I see that you managed to go through the 4 steps. Want to hear a little bit, like, how was it? How was it to try to analyze these habits with cue, reward, everything, and then think about interventions with the East? Who goes first?
I can go. I think it was easy when also we done the one with lunch, skipping the lunch for get more done, because most of them are relatable. And I also checked the other ones as well, which are also like we do it in our daily life and we know the motivation, we know what was the reward, so it's just flowed. So
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Stephanie.
Yeah, I think it's
Oh, yeah.
always a bit more difficult than it looks, especially to, I know it's not important to place the right, let's say, intervention in the right box, but it would be kind of nice to be able to do it a bit more easily, because especially in this one, the response and the reward. I mean, we had, let's say troubles to kind of place what
Mm-hmm.
was in where, because maybe they were strictly connected, and we had group one, the
Mm-hmm.
email.
Yeah, but that's the point. I mean, it's not, the limits between things are blurred, because even if the structure is decomposed into, okay, the cue, the craving, the response, the reward, at the end, in real life, it's, everything is connecting, happens very quickly, and it's so sometimes the limits are blurred. So I understand that you had some challenges, but that's not essential in the way of like the important is for you to identify some potential interventions. To know if it's more about the response or more about the reward, it's more like having categories for you to expand your thinking and to say, okay, it's not just about the behavior itself that I try to make it easier or whatever, but if I work also on the reward, then I have a bigger chance to really help people to change these behaviors. So yeah, I see you've put all the post-its into the reward place. Yeah, makes sense. What else? Danielle?
Signe, Christopher, Pernilla, and I had the mindless scrolling. You pick up your phone for a minute and you're there for 20 minutes. And it wasn't very difficult for us to map out the diagnosis side of it. I mean, we all know exactly more or less why this was happening. So that was rather simple, but definitely getting at the intervention was more challenging because many of the things we thought about, we've maybe all tried and failed miserably with, for the most part. And kind of even some of the ideas we had, we were, laughing at them a little bit. So I think that was the challenge there, was that this was a common, habit for all of us, and we could definitely see how it went. But it is a challenging intervention area to put together.
And again, as
It
Carol
was
was saying, oh, sorry.
no, you start.
Good.
You can.
I was saying, like Carol was saying in the beginning of the session, I mean, when you have a habit that gets so sticked and present into your life, it's very hard to change. It's very hard to change because we are on automatic pilot. We just do the things, yeah. And because the reward, the companies, I can share with you. I don't know if it's in one of the learning kits, but there has been a book. What's the name of the book, Carol? The guy who worked at Facebook and Meta and who was like designing these tricks so that people get, and young people mainly, teenagers get hooked. Hooked, that's the name. So the Hooked book, he explains how do you hook people literally into these kind of habits of like going a lot on social media, unlocking the cell phone all the time, that these notifications are creating dopamine in the brain. And then what's crazy is that guy, Near Ale, afterwards changed sides and wrote another book on how we get our teenagers dehooked from social media, and so it was kind of crazy. But these techniques of hooking people, I mean, the big companies like Facebook, Meta, Instagram, and so on, they have been using this for like years, and it's working, definitely. So sorry, Pernilla, go please.
No, it was a little bit pathetic because I put out a note on the intervention of what was it? Craving. Yeah, go out for a walk and stand up. Is it happening? No, it's not happening. So it's like Daniel said, it was easy to put down the no, but now when I'm reading it, no, it takes a lot more to do it. I
Yeah.
had to make up my mind to go out for more walks, and even though I
Yeah.
made up my mind, it's still hard. So
Yeah.
easy to put down the note, harder to actually do
Yeah.
it.
And again, what is the reward of going for a walk? Do we have a bigger reward to go for a walk than to, eat something nice with sugar? That's
Better health.
that's delicate. Yeah, agree. Totally. Marco, please.
There's two quick things. So we were also discussing, and we were like, okay, yeah, then you get if you don't check your email for like a week, you get a notification and that says, you're the best, you didn't check it. But yeah, Denisa was saying, who cares about a notification? I mean, you need something tangible. Like you need, she mentioned having a cappuccino in bed. You need to send me money. Like so. I feel like tangible things are always a better nudge than abstract or intangible. I don't know if that makes a sense. It makes sense. I also realized that what you said now, Pernilla, like go out for a walk, and then Sabrina said, "Yeah, but and you said, what's the reward? Yeah, maybe like a cappuccino, but then we are basically replacing an addiction with an addiction, and that's what I'm doing with my son to stop him from doing something that I don't want him to do. I basically create another addiction for him. So
Yeah.
when does that stop? I mean, he can't
Yeah.
stop it because he's not able still logically, but are we able to stop it logically?
Things are healthier, right, than others.
Yeah. But coming back to your example of the email, activate the notification. You hear me? It's working? Yeah. So I deactivated my notifications, so I don't have notifications for emails. And in my agenda, when I'm planning my activities of the day, I have slots for email. So I have 4 slots for emails during the day, one when I start, one before I go to lunch, when I'm coming back from lunch, and at night before closing my computer. That way, and my reward at the end, because doing this was not bringing any reward, right? But by doing this, I have other slots in my day where I'm doing focus work. And this focus work, I get so much into the flow of what I'm doing. And it's so rewarding that I have the feeling I'm really doing something valuable and I'm creating value. Then it's a reward that comes after some weeks, but that now it's strong enough to keep me doing that way and not coming back to looking to my emails all the day long. So just an example, but like everything in behavioral design, and especially when you apply it to yourself, is that it's an iterative process. And we'll talk about this in the last session of like, what's the process not to work behavioral design? It's like you have to test something, see if it's working or not. Not working, okay, you test something else. But you don't find always the perfect solution. Could be for an habit or for something else. You don't find the perfect solution at the first time. So could be that, you need to test different things. Thérèse, please.
Well, 2 things. I read Atomic Habits last summer, and in that book he gives a lot of tips on different things you can do. We listened to some of them earlier, but one of the things he recommended, I don't know exactly, but it ended up me deciding that I need to take better care of myself and my health. So I wanted also to go out for long walks. And I found this app where if I walk a certain distance that I decide myself, then I check that box for that day. And that actually worked because, when you have this month in your app, where it's almost full, then you want to complete it because it feels so good to see that it's all, that you've been good. It's interesting, and it works. And so I work with student housing, and we have a weekly cleaning check in the common areas. And usually, I just write well done if it's well done, and sometimes it's not. And then I write, you need to fix this and that. But then one day, it was just one kitchen and it looked really, really good. So I just drew 3 stars and wrote well done. And then a couple of days later, I got all these upset emails from other students who lived in other floors who did not get the stars. And they were like, we did not get the stars. Did we not do well? And I mean, it was the same text. And it's silly because, this is young adults, but still adults. But that star, it really means something. So, yeah.
Yeah. Very interesting example. Thank you for sharing. Really good. Really good. I think I will take the stars example to take the flow and go into the next part, because I think these 3 stars is exactly about peak moments. So I think it's a very good transition to the last content. I want you to practice also this a little bit. So peak and roll. It comes from a book written by 2 brothers, Chip and Dan Heath, called The Power of Moments. And I have a short video. It's an old one, but always very funny. So helps you to understand what's the concept of the peak and roll. Let's go. Can you hear the song? Let me know. Okay.
There's a puzzle about our memories of experiences. Let's call it the Disney paradox. And if you've been to one of the Disney theme parks, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. If we were to sample your happiness level at, say, a couple of dozen different moments over the course of your park visit, my guess is that in a majority of those moments, you would actually be happier sitting on your couch at home. It's less humid there, less crowded. You can get a hot dog for less than $10. But as we reflect on our park visit, it might be one of the highlights of the year. Why is that? Well, psychologists know that our memories of our experiences are not really fair. We don't just take an average of our moment-by-moment sensations when we reflect on our experiences. Rather, we remember snippets, scenes, moments. And in particular, there are 2 moments that we disproportionately remember. The peak of the experience, which is either the best or the worst moment, and the ending. So when we look back on Disney, we tend to remember the roller coaster moments, the sweet family moments, the surprises. But we don't recall that moment-to-moment sweatiness and irritability. Now, when we talk about creating better experiences for the people we care about, whether that's our customers, our patients, our students, or our kids, what this means is that we're really talking about creating better moments. Great experiences hinge on peak moments. But there's a problem, because we're not trained to build peak moments. We're trained to fix problems. We think that to create better experiences, we take a survey and we collect all the complaints and criticisms and we fix those things. But fixing problems doesn't make people happy. Fixing problems whelms people. Not overwhelms, not underwhelms, whelms. If you drive down a stretch of the road with no potholes at all, you're not ecstatic, you're whelmed. If your cable TV functions exactly as it's supposed to, you're not happy, you're whelmed. So if this is the reaction that we want from people, we need to start building peaks. Let me give you an example. There's a hotel in Los Angeles called the Magic Castle. You're seeing scenes of it here. It's not a lot to look at, is it? The amenities aren't that great. Would you be surprised if I told you this is the number 2 rated hotel in Los Angeles based on thousands of reviews on TripAdvisor? How could that be true? There's a phone by the pool. It's cherry red. You pick up the handset, you hold it up to your ear. Someone answers and says, Popsicle hotline, may I help you? You can order up grape or cherry or orange popsicles delivered to you at poolside by someone on a silver tray wearing gloves like an English butler, all for free. There's a snack menu where you can get Cheetos and Cracker Jacks and cream soda, all for free, just for asking. There's a board game menu. There's a movie menu allowing you to check out things for free. There are magicians doing tricks in the lobby in the mornings. You could even drop off your laundry. They'll have it done, washed, and folded by the end of the day. And now you're starting to get a feel for how this unassuming place could be the #2 hotel in LA, just ahead of, you see that? The Four Seasons Beverly Hills. What this teaches us is something so important. Great service experiences are mostly forgettable and occasionally remarkable. People are willing to forget a lot of average, a lot of mediocrity, as long as there are some moments that are special. But those moments don't create themselves. And if we don't invest in those remarkable moments, look at what we're left with. If we want to improve the experiences people have, we've got to stop fixing potholes and start building peaks.
Okay, so I think he explains much better than I. But we have also a framework for that. Called it EPIC, elevation, pride, insight, and connection. So how do you create these peak moments in the experience of your customers, of your students, of your collaborators, whatever? So I will go one by one. Elevation. Elevation is when you are going beyond the routine, beyond the everyday life. You are creating surprise for these people, okay? Give the example here of a written letter. If you come to an hotel and on your bed there is a note made by hand, it makes all the difference because we are not used to it anymore. You know, give the book here also, Unreasonable Hospitality. I don't know if you have seen The Bear, the series, but like how do they go beyond? How do they surprise the clients? You know, so when you get out of the script, when you create something different, you simply elevate. So you create a peak moment for the persons. I have an example here with a very short video.
About that landing.
Woo!
I know. Not bad for his first day. On behalf of Southwest Airlines and especially its flight crew, we would love to welcome you to Maui. But we're in Minneapolis. For your safety and the safety of those you might fall on, please remain seated with your seatbelts fastened. Seat back and tray table are full upright and locked position, and all those carry-on items right where they are. Now, please be careful when opening overhead bins, because shift happens, and we really don't want to do the paperwork. You can use your cell phones now, but only to call your family and friends and tell them how much fun you just had. If you're making a love connection here, a Southwest love connection that is, simply deplane, check the TV monitors for flight and gate number. This is the termination of this flight and possibly this cruise, so do us a big favor, check around you, underneath your seats, your seat back pockets. Make sure you get all your personal belongings, personal problems, anything you brought on board. Take those with you when you leave. It has been such a joy.
Okay, so they get out of the script. They get out of the script so that they are, surprising the passengers. That's as simple as that. Second element of this framework is P for pride. So how do you get people to feel recognized, courageous, accomplished? For example, this tube is like when you are accepted, I don't know if it's Harvard or Stanford or whatever, you just don't get a letter of confirmation. You get this kind of tube. When you open it, it's, spreading a lot of confettis. So creating an experience which is nice. Also in the Ritz-Carlton, they had the rule of $2,000, means each employee every month have $2,000 to spend on anything they want to solve the problem of a customer. Like the customer has a problem, okay, you have $2,000, you can solve it. So they increase like the service level they have for their client for sure, but also these $2,000 given to the employee, it's a way to recognize them, to say like, you have the authority to decide about how to use this $2,000 for your clients. Okay, and so the 3 little stars of Therese, it's exactly this. People felt recognized. They were proud of getting the 3 stars in their evaluation. The third letter is I for insight. When you help people have a realization, shift in perspective, something that change, their self-image. They are discovering a truth, something like an insight. I give you 2 examples here. There is this Dove thing. I don't know if you've seen this video where they are interviewing women so that they have to describe themselves. Okay. And then the guy is just making a sketch from the description that is listening of the woman. And then is making like the sketch described by like people around. And you see the difference between the own description that the person made of herself and the other drawing. So they realize that, oh, okay, I'm not so ugly I thought I was. People see me more beautiful than I think I am. Other example here from Patagonia. Patagonia made this advertising, which is kind of surprising. Don't buy this jacket. They tell you not to buy it. It's pretty surprising because they say we want to recycle, we want to reuse, we want to repair. So they are also like bringing a truth, something like, an insight to their customers. And then the last letter, the C is for connection. How do you create moments where people are sharing something together? A shared meaning, making a moment matter. So example of, it's called Prêt à manger. They have also like the baristas, they can offer a coffee when they see that people are nice to each other, when the clients are nice to each other or something like that, or like the person had a bad day or whatever, they can offer a coffee. They can give it for free. So they are kind of, making this moment special. That's a way of making connections. Okay, so 4 letters for EPIC. And we have not so much time until the end of the session, but I would like you to practice it a little bit. You will get a scenario, and then you will map the journey of the scenario. Like scenario would be onboarding of a new employee, for example. So you map in like 3, 4, 5 steps, what is the onboarding of a new employee? And then you think through the EPIC framework, how you could design a peak moment in this journey. Okay, so it looks like this on the Maro. Each group gets, one situation. And I've put in the bottom the prints of the 4 letters of EPIC. It's not because the group 1 has this slide below that needs to work on elevation, okay? It's just like I've copied the 4s, but you can use any kind of letter. Does not mean that you should apply all of them, okay? You have to find in this context for this journey, what makes more sense to try to create a peak moment. We give it a try, yes? So I will share the link of the Miro again in the chat, just on the right side from what you had before. And then I will launch you into groups, trying to change you guys again. And let's go again for 3 groups. Okay, so we have 12 minutes and I will put the timer also in the Miro. Have a good reflection. Great. So, how was it? Did you find some peak?
It was fun. I missed the session last week, and I'm really glad that I was able to join this week because it's a lot easier to do the task and to understand everything when you actually join fully. So yeah.
Yeah, when you do it, it's always easier than when you just, listen to it. And yeah, definitely. For sure. Who goes?
Group room 2 can start. It was, who was there? It was, you all say your names. It was me.
Marco, Simon.
Marco. One more.
Signe.
Yeah. So we started, it was really fun, but we started from the end, map quickly the journey and ideate on a peak moment. And the the peak moment. It took some while to find it, but then when we started out, we could go, we were
What is
all
it then?
over the.
What
It
is the
was
peak?
like a treat via a QR code. It could be an ice cream or a glass of wine. And that was something that happened to me from my boss a couple of years ago after a summer, last meeting before summer holiday. She actually sent us a QR code and we can go and buy an ice cream in the at 7-Eleven. It was really nice. So that
yeah.
wasn't much, but Marco is Italian and I like wine, so we did the ice cream. We said treat because we could skip it. Or we could change it to
We
wine.
could go to wine depending on the time zone. That's what we said.
Yeah.
Good.
So yeah. So that's
Nice.
and that's a little bit what we are then expecting the next day. Next week, I mean, because it's could be us. So, but it was good fun. But class start with the add-ons in Zoom, like you put mustache, funny hats on it. That's the new, so make it a little bit more funnier because it's the last time. And then we had the lecture workshop and breakout room video clips. We couldn't. We jumped over that. We couldn't do that. And then we have a recap with a red thread in our assignment, something like that. And then we had a surprise get like the hooligans showing up in the last session next week. And then we have a ceremony with diploma and everybody gets personal recognition and with a group applause and everybody gets a treat via QR code.
Cool.
So that's what
great. Thank you for sharing. Great. Good. So you will see now this framework, just like the EAST framework or the EPIC framework, it's framework. So it's different letters to give you ideas of where, which makes sense in this specific context. Does not mean that all the time you will be able to apply all the elements to the given situation you have. So let me share my screen one last time as we are coming progressively to an end. And we see we have another participant. Hello. So cute. Yeah, wants to participate, definitely. Wants to wave to us. Okay, so what we have this week about weekly challenge. The idea is to come back to your challenge, the project you've chosen. But again, if you want to change in the middle of the journey, it's not a problem. You can still change, don't worry. But the idea is to think about designing a nudge to influence this behavior using the EAST framework, and then to think how to create or elevate a given moment. Okay, so you will have this canvas, which is very simple. You write again what is your project goal, and then you think. Again, as I said, does not mean that you can really apply each and every letter. If some of them does not apply, just leave it empty and that's fine, okay? So one for the EAST, one page for the EPIC, and then you can save it in PDF and post it into the channel number 3. Reflection journal, I will also leave the trigger questions here, put them into the Slack so that you can copy paste it. So here, for example, for the EAST and the PEAK, I'm more applying it in the question to your daily work, to the context you have with your colleagues. As in the challenge, you will apply it more to your specific project. Questions, doubts, comments, reflections? We're good?
Yeah, I actually thought of a nudge that I just saw the other day. I'm going to try to share it in the chat here if you can see this picture. Has it come through to people? It was outside of my building where people smoke, and it's basically a place where you can put your cigarette butt, but it's asking you to choose a place to put it, which music is best, and I think it says electronic or hip hop there, and so people are voting by the amount of cigarette butts. I mean, it's brilliant, and there are so few less cigarette butts around. Anyway, I thought that was a very good example of a lot of what we're talking about here.
It's a fun way, because people want to participate. So it's social. Yeah. They want to give their voice. They want to participate. It's fun. I had seen this also with voting for like what is the best football team or whatever, and then the people had to put it on one side or another. I
Yeah,
invite
I
you.
found myself jealous that I don't smoke to not be able to vote here.
You wanted to put something to the box. Yeah,
Something.
agree. Just reminding you guys that you have the case corner on the Miro. If you come back to at the beginning, there is a case corner where we've put some pictures. You can definitely add this picture, Danielle, into the case corner. It's very nice because it's typically a nudge that we see. And if you see things during the week, guys, I invite you to the case corner because it's always cool to have a lot of different examples. It can be inspiring for each of us in our given context. Okay, there are a lot of things there already here. But this one we didn't have in the case corner. So very good, Danielle. Thank you for sharing. And also, the more you train this muscle of observing and seeing these things and seeing the behavioral design concept behind just an action in the street, it's helping you understand also, okay, and make the short analysis. Okay, what's at stake here? How are they playing? Why is it working? People want to give their voice. It's social. It's fun. There are a lot of things you can. And so just for us to know, what is the side of the music which has the highest votes with the cigarettes?
Oh,
Can you tell us?
that's hip hop there.
That's hip hop. And on the
Yeah.
other side, it was what? Amazing.
Electronic. But I should
Electronic.
go. I took this. I think they put one up within 2 weeks, and it was about a week ago I took this. So I should go. I'll do an update and let you guys know how it is before we're done here.
Great. Then you put it on the case corner. Great. Amazing. Thank you, Daniel.
Yep.
Cool. So let's go for checkout. I've chosen a light one, a cat checkout. So which cat best represents you leaving this session? So you choose a number, but you have to say why you've chosen that cat, that specific cat. Okay. You can write in the chat, you can open your mic, but I want to know why you've chosen this or that number. Oh, and Pernilla shared in the trash bins that are talking. Yeah, that's a very nice case too. Also because as they are not always saying the same sentence, people are curious to know what they will say. So that's why they put it in the bin. Yeah, very nice. So Denise put number 2 because behavioral design is fun. Signe 5 because of this baby. Therese 2 because I feel happy and energized. Daniel is 4. It's me thinking about building peaks. Me, I would say I'm number 8 because I love the content of the nudges, but I'm always surprised, how powerful it is and how much potential we have to use it more. Christopher said number 7, satisfied, full of knowledge. Marco number 2, I'm not tricking you. Yeah, we'll talk about ethics also in the next session. So that's a point. Lilia number 1, because curious to learn more. Definitely number 6, seeing the effects of peaks and nudges. Great. Simon number 3, still thinking. It will take perhaps some days, okay? But that's all good. And there are some more also things into the learning kit. So if you want to make a deeper dive, there are really a lot of contents on biases, on nudges. It's really an interesting topic. Pernilla is number 5, tired but inspired, was fun today. And Bettina, number 2, loved the session. Great, guys, many thanks. As I said, available on the Slack if you need. Looking forward to see your challenges and reflections. And hope to see you, everyone, in the last session next week. Tim will be back. Thank you, Carol, for these 2 sessions with us. And we see each other for the last session next week. Bye-bye. Have a good week. Bye. See you.
Bye. Bye.
And bye, little baby cute.
Bye, thank you.
Stop the recording here.